they each revealed, to each of their surprise, that they had not been attracted to one another sexually for the entire length of their marriage. And this was a secret that was kept by each of them individually, never to be expressed. And so it was so synchronistic when each of them actually shared this, such a surprise, right? And it was so wounding, but at the same time, they were able to, in our work, exude such compassion and understanding towards the other that they really healed that part of themselves, which cleared the air, of course, for their ability to move forward in their relationship as they transitioned, to being friends, and co-parents. But it really took that level of forgiving another person and understanding each of their responsibility. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Love Sugar Podcast. I'm your host, Jeannie Byrd. Welcome to the Love Sugar Podcast, transforming love lives one bite at a time. I'm your host, Jeannie Byrd. I'm a love and relationship coach specializing in finding love, sustaining love, and ending love, if necessary, in a healthy way. I also have a Master of Science degree in advanced health coaching and nutrition. And in this podcast, we're exploring love from the lens of the physical and emotional well-being. And why is that? Because our perception of love is happening through our body and our mind. So to have the best experience in love, you need to address your intuition and your nutrition. In today's episode, we'll be talking about forgiveness of yourself, forgiving others, and seeking to be forgiven. Forgiveness is not so much a feeling, but a decision that you make from the most wholesome, strongest, and soundest parts of yourself. Even in the face of being wronged by another, or forgiving yourself for all the old ways you have failed yourself, sold yourself short, maybe sabotaged relationship opportunities. Forgiveness is an opportunity to experience yourself as the wisest, compassionate, and most emotionally advanced version of yourself. Most likely, the disappointment that precedes forgiveness is another opportunity to make amends to yourself, to take responsibility for the part that you have played in the situation, and resolve to show up in ways that are more honoring of yourself and others in how you deal with it. And to discuss this juicy and complex topic with me today is my guest, colleague, and friend, Monica Douglas. And before I bring her on, I just want to share with you many of her accomplishments. So Monica Douglas is a certified relationship coach, interfaith minister, and founder of The Wild Wisdom, offering guidance and rituals for professionals who want to cultivate healthy, loving relationships, especially after breakup and divorce. Through coaching, mentoring, oracle cards, meditations, and retreats, she helps clients to expand their intuition and develop insight and use inspirational rituals for life. Her mission stems from personal experience of thriving in love after the end of a 27-year relationship. She's a spiritual guide, mentor, and coach, certified in conscious uncoupling and calling in the one coaching, wellness coaching, and yoga teacher training. My kind of woman. Her diverse expertise and compassionate approach makes her a valuable guide toward healthier, more fulfilling relationships. So welcome to the Love Sugar podcast, Monica.
Thank you, Jeannie. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, let's dive right in. I'd like to be discussing forgiving ourselves, which involves letting go of shame and blame for our past mistakes or our shortcomings. It also requires self-compassion and understanding that we're simply human. One of my favorite, and I know you know this, simple self-forgiveness prayers that you can use for self-forgiveness is the Ho'oponopono prayer, by just putting your hand on your heart and saying, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Right? I just wonder if you would like to share any of your own experiences around self-forgiveness or that of a client.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it's a calling for our time, forgiveness. Really, this openness to lovingly letting go of that which keeps our heart closed. Because here we are, we're talking about loving relationships and opening up to having our bodies feeling well, our hearts being open, our relationships being healthy. And one of the ways that we can do that is really by leaning into the power of forgiveness. And when I think of myself and this space that I'm in now as an interfaith minister, somebody who holds ritual for others, forgiveness is one of the most powerful junctures for the act of letting go and surrender. My own personal story of this, and you mentioned it in my bio around my moving into thriving and love after the end of a 27-year relationship. So, I find myself in a great deal of pain with the inevitable separation when your whole life is enmeshed with somebody else.
Yeah.
And what I found, and it links your theme of the Love Sugar podcast perfectly, is I ended up with digestive shutdown because I tied myself up in knots. The stress of the separation, even though I was doing a lot of work and support physically, it took its toll. And I remember I was in hospital for 4 weeks, Jeannie.
Oh my gosh.
I remember being in the hospital bed and having to really forgive myself for putting myself through this ordeal, for not taking action sooner, for not listening to my body, and for, even though I knew cognitively what I needed to do, for not taking the action when I needed to. And doing that work to forgive myself for the harm that I'd done to my body and any harm that I'd done to others in that process was huge, a huge moment of awakening in my journey.
And what was the process by which you forgave yourself?
So the process by which I forgave myself was really opening up to seeing what I'd done. So I did, as part of my process of moving through the relationship, I did my work as a conscious uncoupling coach. And one of the things was to look at, okay, how was I acting towards myself? Was I really listening to my feelings and my needs? Was I able to see what my part was in it? Was I able to make an amends to myself and new commitments for what I was going to do moving forward?
Right.
And how could I make, we're talking now around forgiving ourselves, but moving through that process then, okay, what do I need to do to forgive myself for what I did to others that caused harm?
I love that. I love what you're sharing. And, it does usually involve, especially where it concerns forgiving ourselves, an amends, to ourselves, to course correct the way we've been behaving, the way we've been feeling, so that we can shepherd ourselves to higher ground, to really create behaviors and treatment of ourselves in a way that really honors ourselves and reflects the highest and the best. So, as painful as that has been for you in terms of that hospital stay and, being tied up in knots, as it were, I just really honor that journey that you've been on. It's just very, very holy and sacred.
Absolutely. It is holy and sacred. And, it took me through a place of expanding my consciousness. So if we think about awareness of the consciousness of myself and actually how I was behaving towards myself, and as I said, it's a, a call to self-care and then self-nurture and self-respect and then to self-love. A lot of people talk around self-love as though it's an easy one-step move, but it's an iterative process where we need to constantly remind ourselves of the importance of looking after ourselves, and then we can expand into the next stage of consciousness of widening our empathy for others, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, I love that consciousness, expanding our consciousness, which involves a lot of what you're saying, that word nurturing. I wish everyone could really feel how important it is to nurture ourselves. It's a beautiful word. So, and I think, and by nurturing, we're mentoring ourselves at the same time. We're just, guiding ourselves to what's really true about us so that we can make choices, like I was saying earlier, that really honor ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it fits once again with how do we treat ourselves then? So at basic level of nurture, are we nourishing ourselves well? Are we drinking enough water? Are we taking the right nourishment and foods into our body? Are we getting enough sleep? What are our non-negotiables? And are we placing ourselves in spaces, whether that be at home or at work, that really feed our soul?
Right.
Yeah, and when I was going to say, when we ask ourselves those questions, we can assess whether it's a yes or a no. And if it's been a no, then it comes back to, okay, let me forgive myself for how I've been treating me.
That's beautiful. I'd like to share a brief story about how that played out for me in terms of forgiving myself. I was moving from California to Arizona, where I was born and raised, and leaving my entire family and group of friends. And it was such a busy, busy move and so huge, your entire life you're moving. And it was so much work and so exhausting. And about 3 days after we were settled in, I could not get out of bed. It took my husband 30 minutes to help me get out of bed. And then that resulted in 6 months of not being able to pretty much walk without difficulty. So I had to forgive myself because I never slowed down long enough to grieve leaving, the state where I grew up, leaving my family, leaving my friends. I was too busy doing. So that relapse, if you will, that time spent in trying to heal, I really needed to look at myself, which I did, and just spend the time grieving and feel all those feelings. So I could then forgive myself for not paying attention, for actually abandoning myself during the time when I needed myself more than ever,
Oh, yeah. It's a really beautiful offering for you to give, Jeannie, because I'm sure the listeners will have noticed, like reflecting back those times of overgiving, overtrading, not
Hmm.
listening, giving enough time or energy, and ending up in a place where they're depleted. I know that for myself. I've described my story. And yeah, there are moments where we forget what's really important, and it's important for us to give ourselves for that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think, you and I had spoken earlier, and I really love the story about how you needed to take care of yourself as it pertains to taking a break from social media and becoming very mindful about what you were ingesting. I
Mm.
wonder if you can speak to that and the process that you've been going through as you navigate that.
Yeah, it's something that I've been really mindful of over the years, and more recently, I made a very conscious decision to be clear about my use of social media. I came off Facebook altogether, and I took my time off LinkedIn because I felt like I was consuming it mindlessly and that it was actually harmful. So, again, this idea of being on a treadmill, feeling as though it was almost compulsive to post or to be you scrolling or on the screen. And I started to read more about um, the addiction that many people are having to
Yeah.
screen time and social media. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be aware of this. I'm going to make sure that I'm not in that space. And I literally had to do cold turkey removal because I was conscious that,
Yeah.
oof, do I grab for the phone first thing? No, actually, I'm going to leave the phone outside of the bedroom.
Good
Um,
for you. You're leaving the phone outside of the bedroom. That's
Yes,
awesome.
honestly, put the alarm on instead, right? Because
Yes.
many of us have our alarms on our phone, and it becomes such a habit. So, the benefits of it, Jeannie, have been so wonderful.
Yeah, I can't wait. I want to share more. Share more for our
Yeah.
listeners too.
So, powerful sleep at night because of the reduction in screen time before bed.
Yeah.
So higher quality sleep. Also, a reduction in low-level anxiety. I didn't know I had it until I didn't have it anymore. A low-level anxiety around checking the phone, responding to comments, all of these things that once I removed the stimulus, I was able to notice, I don't have that.
Yeah.
So an increase in energy and actually purpose. So it's created more time for me. Incredible.
Oh, that's
And
amazing. More time and more time. I love that.
anybody want more time?
Yeah. Yes, sign me up. That is so
Yeah.
true. I just remembered in this moment as you're speaking, I had a client yesterday, a gentleman that was, in the same situation as you're describing and trying to rectify it within himself and realizing the meaning he had been making about himself if someone liked his post rather than hearted it.
Hmm.
And just to hear those words come from him and from a guy too, and to really feel hurt if it wasn't a heart, to me was so emblematic of what we've been speaking about. This is becoming an epidemic.
Yeah.
This social media and the scrolling and actually the form of self-abandonment it's promoting.
Yeah.
What we're scrolling through other people's lives, you
Mm.
know,
Well, it's a
it's
form not only of self-abandonment, Jeannie, but it is actually for some people a form of self-harm because this comparison, like it's comparisonitis and and criticism.
Yeah.
of themselves and others, it's like it can be very harming to our psyche. And I don't think enough people are talking about it. And it is really important. Like it's I have the other side of it, in that, I had a friend recently who actually had passed away. She died, and I didn't know, and it was only through a friend contacting me through social media did
Oh,
I
I see.
know,
Yeah.
right? So there are pieces of, I'm not wanting to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I just want us to be able to be conscious of our consumption in the same way that we're conscious of our consumption of food.
Exactly.
And so it's like, let's be mindful. Let's use it for positivity. The fact is, many people will come to this podcast because they'll have picked it up through social media in some way, shape, or form, or through our electronic newsletters. So we can use it, but let's use it mindfully.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm,
Yes, and thank you for that plug. For the reason this podcast exists anyway is to, let's pick up our forks and look at that piece of food, and let's pick up our phones and really look at that. Can I put this down now? you know, what can
mm,
I do that is more productive with
mm.
my time? You know,
Yeah.
especially if it involves just scrolling, other than informing ourselves about what's going on in the world or with our families. Or
Mm.
being inspired. I certainly will love a good Rumi quote any day of the week.
Absolutely. Inspiration and information and things that nourish us and nurture us and
Yeah.
encourage us to be more loving um, souls in the world.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes. Yes. And anything that really highlights man's humanity to man, I'm all over it. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Where I'm at the moment is I'm in the UK, but I normally live in the Caribbean and in Barbados. And at the moment, the hurricane season has started.
That's right. Yes. I
Okay.
was thinking
So,
about you the other day. Yes.
yeah, and actually, our capacity to connect with others, our loved ones, and see what's going on in real time is such a gift for us now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Well, thank God.
Mm,
Thank God that you have that capacity right now because
mm, mm,
oh boy. Well, anyway, this is a beautiful segue into moving into forgiveness of others, you
mm,
know?
mm.
So I think the choosing to forgive is not about condoning bad behavior, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have that person back into your life. But what it's about is you. Again,
Yeah.
your relationship with you, right? Your choice to not allow that betrayal or resentment to fester inside and occupy so much emotional real estate inside of you. The choice now is to let go of the anger that is affecting you and discover what's in you that needs to change so that you can grow and evolve and not invite these kind of dynamics into your lived experience anymore. I think the question then is, what is my anger now demanding I change? And what's wanting to wake up within me now?
Mm.
So I just love you to weigh in here, Monica, what your thoughts about that are, and as we segue into forgiving others.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, Jeannie, and in particular, a client story. I had a beautiful client who came to me after having a really traumatic experience of being with a partner who she found out had been lying to her all the way through their relationship.
Mm,
So
painful.
high level of, like, almost a second life experience. So
Yeah.
he had another partner, um, had uh, got her pregnant while he got somebody else pregnant. So big stuff. And the impact of of that and of him leaving her and her finding this out was a decimation of this woman's self-esteem,
Oh,
um, and of her capacity to trust herself and trust other people. And, she was still in a place where she wanted to have a long-term relationship and start a family of her own, but felt unable to make any moves towards that because of the level of devastation of her experience. She was furious, she was sad, in a very depressed state, and very much locked in a space of seeing how she had been victimized, and giving him all the power for how she felt,
right.
and unable to offer any forgiveness towards him or herself for this whole situation. Very, very, very challenging situation. And in our work together, she was able to really turn her attention on loving herself and on the parts of her that had not been heard. When she'd seen behavior from him that actually didn't stack up, she'd
Right.
recognized that she dismissed herself and she'd abandoned herself, and that she'd not treated herself well enough. His behavior was, as you said right at the beginning, Jeannie, it's not condoning his behavior. His behavior was, you know,
Reprehensible.
yeah, I'm trying to think of a word. I'm trying not to swear, right? But it's, deeply wounding behavior, without any sense of remorse. So, you'd say that mm, there was a level of mental health at the level he was acting. So we're not condoning his behavior, but I wanted to empower my client to see that she could be trusted and that she could gain new skills and capabilities so that she would be able to act in the world again and to reclaim her power and energy.
Yes. Yes. And to be able to trust herself again
Deep.
and be able to
Mm,
trust her intuition so that when she did receive red flags from whatever life situation was going on, then she would recognize that and guard her consciousness.
exactly. Exactly. So this example is an example of the power of really naming what's going on for the individual. Really knowing, okay, actually, what is it that I need to look at for me that's going to help me move forward? And then coming into that space of self responsibility. So, what is it that she could claim for herself? What new skills could she develop? What could she now notice, as you say? What are the red flags? And would she now listen to her
Yeah.
inner knowing, so that she could then get to a point where she could go to this forgiveness piece?
Yeah. And then hopefully, Monica, really be able to actually, at some point, forgive him by really realizing that he had just shown her who he was,
Mm,
and that now she had the power, as you were saying, reclaiming the power to make different decisions in her life and to understand when people were acting out that it's about them and not us, not her.
yeah, yeah. So the learning for her was deep,
Yeah.
and her, I love her story because she really came into her own power in this stage of forgiving herself and him, and recognizing where she was never going to do the same behavior again.
Right.
and that she could step back into trust for herself and her future. So she claimed her future. She's now engaged to somebody beautiful
Oh,
who,
I was
and
hoping you'd say that.
yes, she is. She is. She's engaged to somebody beautiful. She's incredibly in her power, in her knowing, um, and actually has been able to go through it, and it took time. It didn't happen overnight. Go through a forgiveness process, which took her to a place of gratitude for what had happened to her, because she sees herself as stronger, more powerful, more conscious now because of what she's gone through.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
love that how we always speak about how, the greatest wound, our sacred wound, actually becomes our superpower. So she's been able to just turn that on a dime and use that experience to become the woman she's always been destined to become, basically.
Exactly.
Beautiful story. Beautiful. I'll share just a really short one about these two female clients I recently completed with. And they are a gay couple and have been married for over 25 years. And in working with them, when we got to the session where it was a joint session, they each revealed, to each of their surprise, that they had not been attracted to one another sexually for the entire length of their marriage. And this was a secret that was kept by each of them individually, never to be expressed. And so it was so synchronistic when each of them actually shared this, such a surprise, right? And it was so wounding, but at the same time, they were able to, in our work, exude such compassion and understanding towards the other that they really healed that part of themselves, which cleared the air, of course, for their ability to move forward in their relationship as they transitioned, to being friends, and co-parents. But it really took that level of forgiving another person and understanding each of their responsibility in this situation. That really does show, there's no shame or blame. Nobody's bad or wrong here. It's just people being people, and let's accept what's going on for people and navigate who we're going to be in the face of learning certain surprises that life throws us. Who are we going to be in the face of them?
Absolutely. It requires deep honesty.
Yes.
Deep honesty, Jeannie.
So what happens, Monica, when we don't forgive others? What happens inside of us?
It's like we are, that analogy of it's like we're drinking the poison and expecting the other person to get sick. If we don't forgive ourselves, we're locking away our potential, and our potential needs to be released. Our full energy and power needs to be ours. And I think in our work, Jeannie, it's really about creating space through resolving that which would hold us back.
Yeah.
So seeing that which is in our field, in our life, that hasn't come to resolution, and shining a light on it so that we can be free of its hold.
Yes, I love that. Be free of its hold. It's beautifully expressed. And, there's such an opportunity. Most people want to turn away from the pain. And it makes sense. I mean, who wants to feel pain, right? But actually leaning into the pain and getting curious, as we say, finding our 3%, or in most cases more, What's our responsibility so that we can free ourselves? Because again, it's all choice, right? We have the choice to course correct and do things differently,
mm. Yeah, we do have the choice. And, this is, a core part of my work really is about bringing us back to choice, about how we think and how we act and how we are in the world. The practice that I want to share with you and
Yes.
our listeners today is about choice. And it's using one of the everyday rituals that I used with the Wild Wisdom Oracle cards, and linking our theme of forgiveness with choice.
Yeah.
So recognizing that forgiveness is a choice. It's not a given, but it
Right.
is a choice. It's a choice towards ourselves and for others.
Beautiful. Well, are you going to lead me?
I'm
Any
happy
practice?
to. Yeah. And I know in the show notes you're going to give people
Yes, I
this
am.
practice.
I'm going
So,
to give them in the show notes. I'm very excited to do that. And that's, again, the Wild Wisdom Oracle.
Okay. So I'm going to show you on the screen. This is the Wild Wisdom Oracle card. I choose
Yes.
forgiveness.
Beautiful.
Right. So just take a moment to gaze at that, Jeannie, and be aware of the colors, the textures. Wild mind wisdom at the top. I choose forgiveness at the bottom. And,
Yeah.
if you're listening, you'll have the show notes with it in it as well. And at the center is this central mandala. And there's a pyramid and some concentric circles. So in the wild wisdom, we're about being in community, and anybody who's ever gazed at this card, I want you to be aware of these people who've come before you and everyone who's gazing with you now and everyone who will gaze in the future. So we're all contributing to an opening to forgiveness, to this choice.
I
And
love that. That's
yeah,
profound.
yeah. And I want to invite you to breathe in as though you could breathe in from the center of your eyebrow center to the center of your head. And as you breathe out, to breathe out down the sides of the pyramid that fills your whole body. Yeah, and closing your eyes now, breathing in from the eyebrow center to the center of your head, and then breathing out down the sides of this pyramid. 3 more times. I choose
I choose
forgiveness.
forgiveness.
2 more. Breathing in. I choose
I choose
forgiveness.
forgiveness.
Once more.
I choose
Mm.
forgiveness.
And allow that to continue as this forgiveness radiates out from you, through you. Being aware of our Wild Wisdom community, everyone choosing forgiveness in this moment, supporting you in this choice.
Wow. I feel like all my cells are just electric and alive.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. Really.
So allow yourself to be here. And be aware of all the times You may have hurt yourself, consciously or unconsciously, by actions, thought, or speech. And know that I am forgiven.
I am forgiven.
I am forgiven.
I am forgiven.
Mm. And as you continue to be in this energy, be aware of all the times that you've hurt someone, consciously or unconsciously, by actions, thought, or speech. And allow yourself to say a prayer. I ask for forgiveness.
I ask for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. 2 more times.
I ask for forgiveness.
Mm.
I ask for forgiveness.
Mm. Mm. And allow that to continue, and be aware of all the times that someone has hurt you, consciously or unconsciously, by actions, thought, or speech. And allow the potential for this, that I forgive them. Mm.
I forgive them. I forgive them. I forgive them.
And allow this to continue. It's like you've planted the seeds for this forgiveness. And then placing one hand on your heart and one hand on your abdomen. Gently take a moment, open your eyes to be aware of Wild Mind Wisdom, I Choose Forgiveness card, and the energy of our community. I choose forgiveness.
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 Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
being in the wild wisdom.
That was so lovely, Monica, really. I could feel it, as I said, in every cell of my being. And it's so calming and nurturing.
Mm.
Thank
Mm.
you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. You're welcome, Jeannie.
All right. I'd like to now move into our third category of forgiveness, which you touched on with the oracle cards, and that is asking for forgiveness from another.
Mm.
In this situation, we are taking responsibility for our actions and showing genuine remorse for any harm that we have caused someone else, just as you were sharing in that exercise you led me through.
Mm.
And it really does require humility and willingness to make amends, because we're really acknowledging the impact of our behavior on someone else. And we're really seeking to repair the dis-ease in the relationship. And by seeking forgiveness, we're also increasing our capacity to forgive others who have harmed us on some level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would just want you to comment on that. Is there a place in your life, Monica, where you have sought forgiveness from another that you could share with the listeners?
Absolutely. I'm going to come back to actually my relationship with my former husband.
Yeah.
In in that, you know, we did really well in our breakup and in our divorce, but it wasn't easy. We're not best friends, and it was very painful. And you know, it's over 5 years now since we separated, and um, just recently we were able to go to a funeral together and to sit with one another
Mhm.
and be with one another. And I realized it was because I'd made specific effort to really be in that space of asking for forgiveness at a soul level from him for any harm that I may have done him, consciously or unconsciously. And a lot of that was done soul to soul. It wasn't done in personal conversation.
Yeah.
Like really sitting with him and being in the space of asking for forgiveness for any harm that I may have caused, and offering love and compassion to him. Um, and it felt like a palpable shift in
Mhm.
the energy between us. It's
Yeah.
also about, you know, I made some conscious amends during the process, but I really feel the energetic process of talking at a soul level, heart to heart, was really what made the shift.
I love that. I love what you're speaking to because really, we're all energy, right? As human beings, we're energy, and people can feel that. I've just seen miracles happen with this soul to soul, where such healing has taken place without
Mm.
one word of dialogue communicated. So that
Yeah,
is really beautiful that you were able to have that with him.
yeah, absolutely. And a real, you know, what really breaks my heart with many of my clients is when, particularly at the beginning of the process, it's as though the good things that happened in their relationship didn't exist
Yeah.
because of the pain of the end. And I am a firm believer in getting to a point where you can reclaim the good.
Yes.
Yeah, where you can reclaim the good, and you can also be conscious that the love that you felt at the beginning was real.
That's right. Because, yes, of course, there were going to be good times in the relationship, and nobody can take that away from you at all. Those good times will inform the rest of your life, just like understanding the bad times and the reason that you're not together anymore will also inform you to make a different choice. But
Mm.
you can hold on to those precious memories. You
Yeah,
know?
and you can reclaim those precious memories. And
Yeah.
I think it's really important to do that for the holistic health of ourselves and our communities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And I think in asking forgiveness, there's another way that I don't think is thought of as often, but we can ask forgiveness from another person by actually saying, I ask for your forgiveness for not showing up in the fullness of who I really am. I was actually showing you a dimmed down version of myself.
Yeah,
And the amends I want to make to you now is that I will not show up that way in the future. I will be shining my light bright.
absolutely. It's a wonderful piece to do, right?
Yeah,
I love that work for myself and with my clients. It's
yeah,
like a real commitment to shine brightly, to honor the truth of our feelings and our needs, and to not accept anything less than that for the good of all.
Yeah,
Mm.
I love that. And the prayer I wanted to just mention before we move on, that, that we both know very well, is just, I forgive you for everything you've ever done to me in thought, word, or deed that has caused you pain.
Yeah.
You are free and I am free.
Yeah.
And I ask that you forgive me for anything that I've ever done in thought, word, or deed that has caused you pain. You are free and I am free.
Yeah. The beauty of the you are free and I am free, recognizing our interrelation, our interdependence actually, and um, and our capacity to part ways and reclaim our power and energy. I think it's very, very important.
Part of the way that we reclaim our power and energy, aside from our deep personal work that we do with ourselves, is again in the self-care realm of minding what our nutrition is. And our nutrition is not just what's on the tip of our fork, but is what you were saying earlier, what we're ingesting, in terms of social media, or what you're reading, who you're hanging out with, what you're watching on TV. All of this actually, according to Little Buddha, is nutrition. So it's
Yeah.
being very mindful of what we are allowing ourselves to be influenced by, so that we can make holistic choices about our lives that will then carry us into our future,
Mm, absolutely. Let us nourish ourselves on all levels, body,
Yeah.
heart, mind, soul, and in our environment. And I think when we're conscious of that, it enables us to thrive more fully in the world. Um, and this is why I love your podcast, Jeannie. This combination of what's going on with us in our minds and our psyches, but also what's happening on the tip of our fork, and in how we really choose to nourish ourselves. And I hope this podcast is real nourishment for those that are listening.
I hope so too. I'm praying for that right along with you. I'm so hoping there's a lot of benefit to receive here and some ahas, So we've been talking a lot about forgiveness, but there's a whole redemptive side of forgiveness, right? The good things. And we just mentioned that actually. One of the good things is that the future that we now get to embrace, as we have reclaimed our power and we have forgiven and we've cleared away all that emotional baggage, to really clear the way for what and who we are becoming, and who we will be interacting with in our future, that really mirrors and blesses our lives. So I think part of it for me is gratitude, being grateful for all of it. Just bring it on. Let me learn from it. Grateful for the hard times as well as the blessed times.
Yeah, definitely. I think gratitude and forgiveness come together.
Right.
And it's almost like our capacity to forgive increases our capacity to see that which is a blessing for us, or those things like our existence, our life, the good things that have happened in our life or happen in our life every day. And when we open into that space, it's almost like anything that would hold us back from our true state of being starts to fall away. Because it can't exist in the face of this deep loving compassion for ourselves and others, and also this deep gratitude that we have for the life that we are living.
Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautifully expressed. I love that. Such deep gratitude for the life that we're living. And even in the face of all of the divisiveness and craziness in our world right now, we can still find gratitude in so many little things, you know, and the love for ourselves, the love of others, the self-care, again, what we're putting in our mouths, how we treat ourselves throughout any given day and at the end of the day, what I love about gratitude is to remember what our gratitudes are for that day. What am I grateful for in that day? To stop and just cherish all the things in that day to be grateful for.
Absolutely. And for me, this is why I'm really grateful for my role as an interfaith minister, because it's also about a leaning into a sense of spirit in terms of how we feel about ourselves and life. So this can be for people of any faith or none. There's this, like, if spirit is in essence how we are with our life and the world around us, and we have daily rituals to connect us to that. For some it will be nature, for some people it will be their particular religious faith. Whatever we choose that gets us into this space of loving appreciation and feeling held and supported really works, which is
Yeah.
why I'm so grateful for ritual and ceremony and reminders of that which supports us.
What you're saying reminds me, and I won't, get it verbatim, but I saw somewhere recently, it was a prayer, and the prayer was, I was praying to God today and expecting words to come, but what came were flowers. And I almost missed them before I remembered at the last minute. And I heard and saw God through the flowers.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There are so many ways to hear and feel and see God, spirits, the universe, when we remember, which is why the daily practices of rituals and prayers and ceremonies are so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I think we are pretty much coming to the end of our session today, Monica, and I cannot thank you enough for your heart and the depth of your wisdom and your expertise. And I wonder if there was one takeaway that you would share with the listeners for today in our conversation. I wonder what might come up for you to share.
Yeah, my takeaway would be to remember you can choose. Remember you can choose forgiveness. You can choose gratitude. You can choose to be supported and held. You can choose to anchor yourself in loving support and compassion.
And I think my one takeaway is just, self-responsibility. That in that forgiveness piece that we always can look to ourselves. The answer is always within. And however we might be holding grudges towards another, feeling resentment towards another, that there's always the opportunity to turn the finger around and point to ourselves to discover how we are the source. All right, my dear, I just wanted to again remind everyone that I will be putting the Wild Wisdom Oracle cards in the show notes in terms of the PDF that Monica has shared with us today. So I'm so excited. And she also has given me a link to the wisdom cards itself. So you'll be receiving that as well.
Great.
So everyone, thank you so much thank you so much for joining the Love Sugar podcast. And please remember to always take care of yourself first. Thank you for listening and for watching if you're joining us on YouTube. If you got value out of this conversation, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when the next episode of the Love Sugar podcast drops. Until next time, always take care of yourself first.